Ooh.
Good morning.
Hello.
I think what were we going to do? I can't remember. Was it the Beatles? I think probably the Beatles.
Yeah.
We should review the Beatles. What could
Yeah,
go
why
wrong?
not? Yeah.
It's fine. No one has any opinions about the Beatles, so everyone will be cool
No.
about it. It'll be all fine. So yeah, we're going to do it. Hallowed ground. We're sorry. Don't take it seriously. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Okay, so we've got to review Please Please Me. That's the first album we're doing. We're not doing My Bonnie. Doesn't count. And it's nowhere near the start of the story. Actually, is I think the point. Whole load of stuff happened before this. When I was a kid, I used to call my Bonnie lies over the ocean, my body lies over the ocean. Which as a kid I thought that was hilarious. It was a kind of horror thing or something. It sounds really existential. So this album, which I'm holding because my dad owns it, represents the period after mid '62 to early '63. So it's actually these first six albums we're going to do. It's the longest period of time. Interestingly, and I think three things had happened. Three things. You could argue they sold out, or they were being subversive. Which, history proved kind of maybe it's true. And obviously, the bit people talk about is that they started wearing suits instead of scary rock and rollers. And it's a lot more. That's what people talk about, but it's a lot smarter than just we're going to wear different clothes now. This is family-friendly marketing of cutting-edge rock and roll, out-of-control rock and roll. And they're into risque arty stuff and etc. And all that was out of fashion by this time anyway. So they're part of that thing of tidying it up and putting it on TV. But also, most significantly, they started their own songwriting publishing company. That's the bit they treated as their day job. That's the bit they really took seriously, because that's where the money is, isn't it? And they must have thought that's where the future lies. Unfortunately, they were a proper band already, because they'd gone and done that already. So so they could do what they perceived as being the Buddy Holly thing, as it was a band. And the band wrote the songs, and the band played the songs on their own, And yet, the first single was the only song, and it's the only song until Let It Be, that came from the really, really, really early stuff when they were writing songs. You have to remember, they weren't writing songs the period before this. They were playing loads of covers, but when they were still in Liverpool as kids, actual kids, they were writing songs, and one of those was Love Me Do. But there's only this one, and I think it's one after 909 on Let It Be. So that was the first single, which is really interesting. So that's not from the song publishing period. And number three things that happened. Obviously, the introduction of George Martin, I think, is maybe underplayed, actually. He overdubbed some stuff onto this album when they weren't there. So he played on the albums. Later on, he wrote stuff, and he's not just some classically trained, boring man who did some orchestral sessions. He worked with the Goons, and that's so important. He understood the Beatles thing, which was already there. They were having to tidy it up and hide it a bit, the craziness, but that humour was very much a Goons thing, So this album isn't really their starting point, where they were just innocently playing the sounds of the time. If you just listen to the albums like that, you would think that. It's kind of an introductory album for people of the time. They changed their repertoire quite a lot. You can hear, there's actually a recording of them playing back in Hamburg the Christmas after this, I think, or maybe Christmas '62, when they were now this wasn't out, but they were starting to get really big, and you can see they've changed the set list, and it is basically the set list that's recorded here. So obviously, but they had this massive repertoire of cover versions, and I think the songs they chose were the safer options. You know, every documentary they always play that bit of some other guy. It's a later performance of a cavern performance of some, and it sounds awesome. You know, but here there aren't many real heavy rock and roll songs, and it sounds pretty intense. So yeah, controversial. Ringo is new. He's quite new at this point. He was new the previous summer when they started doing the singles. Recorded in a day. 8 songs, the rest are covers. For me, I saw her standing there, just stands far above the rest of the album. And the Beatles thing is there, but the covers just aren't as good as the Beatles songs. Which they hadn't realised at this point, I think. Or maybe they just didn't have enough songs at this point. Maybe Twist and Shout is as good, but you know, it is interesting. Paul and John did see 2 tiers of their writing, in that they did commercial songs which they thought were hits, but were, what would you call them, Tin Pan Alley songs, in that some of those songs they did end up selling to different bands, and generally those songs, I can't remember what Paul called them, like stock or something. You know, Metallica used the word stock, don't they? But generally they'd give those to Ringo or George to sing, which is quite funny. So that's what this album is. I kept spelling Hamburg wrong, as in Hamburg, and then I realised Hamburg from Liverpool, and that's why I was spelling it like that. And there you go. And this is where I would throw the album at the screen.
Yeah, and I really struggle, you know, to find something interesting to say about this, because actually everything that's interesting about this is probably in the history and the backstory.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's a collection of nice pop tunes.
Yes.
Which is pretty good. I mean, I remember when I hadn't really heard. Well, I heard of the Beatles. I'd heard of the Beatles before I heard any Beatles songs, or
knew you'd heard Beatles songs.
I knew I'd heard Beatles songs, yes. And I, you know, there was this big deal, and everything was fantastic, and they're the biggest thing that's ever happened because they were the best thing that's ever happened. And then you start listening to Sgt. Pepper's or something like that, and you're a little bit like, that's not quite what I expected. But this is kind of what I expected, I suppose, at that early age. Is sort of like, yeah, every song's pretty good.
It's got a beat.
It's got a beat. It's enjoyable. You can sing along with, you know, most of it. Yeah, it's great. And Twist and Shout's really good because it's, you know,
shake it up, baby. Yeah, sore throat. Apparently they all did. But by the end, it was just, you know.
Yeah, this is a really good album.
Yes.
Beatles album 1 is a good album. That's my review.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, funny. Well, I had the opposite problem in that it's the trivia problem in that obviously because it's the Beatles, every moment of their day is tracked somewhere about this happened and then this happened and then, you know. The question is, did they invent that early sound, which is on Please Please Me, that song? That's the Beatles there, Beatlesness. The genesis of that song is interesting, and no, they didn't. I don't think. It's an amalgamation of things they liked, and it's not really Buddy Holly music. I think that's kind of a. They liked the fact that he was writing his songs and he was nerdy. But the actual music, I don't think there's a lot of influence. I think but you can hear it in the sort of more authentic R&B stuff. Something, you know, when you listen to the songs they mentioned that they're really influenced by. There was one they played in Hamburg over and over and over, and you have to remember. It's funny how rock tradition would tell you differently, but they were playing 20-minute jams every song because they had to pay for 7 hours or whatever it was. But there were certain songs that they really liked. I just can't remember the name of it. They liked Searching by the and you can hear it in that kind of music. The Coasters, that's it, the Coasters. There were singles, obviously, and this is a few months after the Love Me Do, I think. Now here's the thing. George Martin was like, well, you need someone to write your hit first. You need that hit single, so you need to go to the publishing people and buy a song to have your hit. Then you can have your own songs. And he found the How Do You Do, and that's really interesting. That although we're saying, well, sell out, man, it's too commercial, but they wouldn't do it. They said, we're not playing that. It's they go back to like the rough kids at Liverpool playing How Do You Do. They would be embarrassed. So they went for that old song with the bluesy thing on it, and that's their record, their first record, and so that would be really cool. And I think George Martin did think, if they had done that song, it would have been a bigger hit than Love Me Do, which got to like number 17 or something. The charts were a bit complicated then, because there wasn't a UK album chart. I think one of them was chosen as the UK album chart eventually. Ringo, of course, didn't play on Love Me Do, and George Martin does say he didn't even hear him play. So it's not that he heard Ringo play and said that's not good enough. He didn't. Or George Martin is tone deaf. Yes, that's not what it was. They did their demo with Pete Best. There is a demo with Pete Best, which is not very good. It's really not. Really, I was amazed, but it's not. You can tell they're nervous, and it's not just Pete Best. Pete Best, the tempo is terrible, but even Paul sounds nervous. His voice is wobbling, because it's the first one, I suppose. I don't think the idea that Pete Best wasn't good enough entirely rings true. I don't know, maybe, after Hamburg, he would have been able to play. But of course, they'd already heard a lot of Ringo, and I think Ringo had actually already played with them a couple of times in various times in Hamburg. So, if you've got this great drummer, this is a time when nobody can play at all. Yeah, it's just this. And this guy who's got this swing, but it's like rock and roll, it's not bloody jazz or something. You're going to want to get them, aren't you? So I think that maybe that was in there as well. But George Martin did say, like, the drummer's not good enough, you're going to have to use a session drummer. So he didn't think they were getting rid of him, they thought they'd use the session drummer for the recording, which is what they did. Obviously, there's other people. It was Jimmy Page or whoever was playing on the records, and they mimed to it afterwards. So George didn't fire Pete Best, but Pete Best was fired, and they got Ringo. And then Ringo came in, and then he'd already got the session drummer ready. So that's why there's 3 versions of it. There's the original version, there's the one with that, and then they did record it with Ringo, but that wasn't put on this album. This version here, that's not Ringo playing. You can tell between the Ringo and not Ringo version. The only difference is you can hear tambourine on the one without Ringo, because Ringo's on tambourine. Other than that, it's the same. Whereas the original one is well dodgy. It's nowhere near as good. Okay. Songs. So, did any particular song stand out?
It's the famous ones, basically.
Yeah.
As I just go through them. I saw her standing there. Love Me Do. Twist and Shout are the obvious ones.
Yeah.
And then maybe A Taste of Honey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Chains.
Right. That one doesn't do anything for me at all. I don't know why they did that.
I didn't think it would. I was a little bit sceptical there. Mm-hmm. Please Please Me is obviously very good.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's all really good,
Yeah. The other famous song is P.S. I Love You.
Yeah.
I don't think that's as good, quite as Please Please Me, and I Saw Her Standing There. For me, seems that's like proper Beatles. That is, that has to go on a compilation, whereas the rest of them maybe not.
Yeah.
There's 2 takes of I Saw Her Standing There. The first take, there's a horrible flub in the guitar solo. Pretty rough around the. 1963, rock and roll band. They have been playing for years, though, to be fair. But yeah, the solo in I Saw Her Standing There doesn't. The rest of the song is so alive, and the solo starts. It's bang, 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 you know. But you can't hold it to that standard.
Yeah.
It's do you want to know a secret? Is the stock song that Paul was sort of saying? Well, it's not that good, so let's give it to George to sing. That turns out the songs that Ringo and George sung, they're the commercial songs. They're the mechanically written hits, and they're some of the really good stuff. They're sung themselves. One song was recorded and not used, but is on the next album, so obviously we'll talk about that. I think it's funny. There's parallels with Black Sabbath in that they did do the Hamburg thing and came back and recorded an album one day, and it was just they just came in and recorded the album and went away, and now it's sort of forever, and it's the first album, the first Beatles album, you know. And it's funny that, and it is just that day of the set of recorded, you know, with the cold. I have got stuff here about Hamburg. I think it's interesting, so I'm going to talk about Hamburg.
Okay.
I think that's more interesting than this album, actually. It was pretty, you know, obviously going from Liverpool to the crazy cutting edge place of Hamburg where there were lots of art students. And that turned them into a proper band, obviously, with bottles being thrown at them and having to play million-hour sets. And Ringo obviously wasn't in the band at that point. It was still Stuart Sutcliffe and Be Best. But Ringo was there in Rory, Storm and the Hurricanes, who were at a higher level, actually. They were further ahead and they'd been there. He'd been playing longer. I think he's older, actually, Ringo. So there was a bit of competition, and there was times when they were told, look, these guys are coming now, so you've got to up your game. You know, there's lots of great stories. I mean, we're told, how much of this is true is the question, you know, that John would start the show with the Hitler salute and say Heil Hitler in Hamburg in 1959.
Ooh.
And they all laughed. And, I mean, here people probably would have done it, and certainly 10 years later, definitely would have done it. And then you got Fawlty Towers 5 years later after that. But in Hamburg, really, in 1959, goodness me! But I think this was like a dangerous club where you were on the edge, man.
Subversive.
Yeah, you know, because rock at that point, rock and roll, 62, 61, was still like the cool people were doing it. It was new. It was a frightening new thing. You know, the art people did it. So Ringo was in Rory, Storm and the Hurricanes, and they were getting apparently I think all the bands were competing to break the stage because it was just some planks, I think. You know, so the singer jumped up and down until the stage cracked, and the guitarist disappeared through a hole, and half of Ringo's kit fell in on top of him, I think. That I can believe because it's, you know, it's kind of rubbish. But they were sent home in a very rock and roll way. In that, and again, is it true, or is this? It depends when it was told, really, because it's sort of before the time of telling stories, you know. But well, George was underage; he was 17. Got caught and was sent home. But meanwhile, when they got a job in a bigger club, they sort of said goodbye to the club by sticking a condom on the wall and setting fire to it. So I think two of them ended up in prison. I think John and Stuart Sutcliffe. I think maybe someone can correct me on that. Ended up in prison and they were sent home by the Germans. You will go home. But I'm pretty sure they went back after that before they were mega famous. Once George turned 18, I think. So, and that's when Stuart Sutcliffe left. He actually left to be a painter. I think that's right, because he's an art student, you know, and he wasn't. He liked the rock and roll fashion of the current thing and posing, but didn't want to play. He didn't want to do that. He was having to play. But he must have been able to by that point, having gone through that. But it's probably significant, and he was the cool one. So maybe he would have been against changing their image and softening it and making it look safe and all that stuff. It's the fun. The Beatles, they're so fun. Well, they're having bloody orgies or whatever in private, but nobody hears about that. Everyone thinks that that was later throwing TVs out the window and all that stuff. Maybe they would have gone much more progressive, much more quickly. I don't know, but they would never have been as There's a process that they had to go through, and it is such a shame there isn't. Well, I say there isn't a Hamburg album. There is a Hamburg album. It's My Bonnie, but that's not a Beatles album. It would have to be a live album, obviously, and there are live recordings of Hamburg, but it's later. They think there were these pretentious arty people around. There was actually like two factions. There was the rock and rollers and the X's, existentialists, because they were beatniks still. It was still beatnik time, And Astrid Kircher is a name you read about, and she got them to look like Beatles and all that kind of stuff. So somebody there potentially could have made an arty film about them playing, and of course it didn't happen. So sadly, we didn't get that period at all. And that's it. So yeah, Please Me, first album.
So that's the history, yeah. That's the background to the album.
Yeah, but it's
Is all that important, considering that the actual songs are quite good, and it's quite a good album?
Well, it's the Beatles. Of course it is.
It does get me a little bit about the Beatles. I mean, Beatles fans love the details of the background.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. The mythopoeia around it, I suppose. But surely, I can't. That thing's only important for certain types of music, I would say. So improv, the state of the performer at the time they were performing, is important. Therefore, the backstory is important, and it feeds into the enjoyment of the music. But an album of recorded songs, surely all that matters is, do you enjoy it or not? Well,
ultimately, yeah. But I think this album isn't what it appears to be. If you just listen to those studio albums, you think it's a much more innocent sounding record than it actually is. They were much further down the road at this point. That was a crafted thing that had to be like that at that point.
This is to get their foot in the door.
Yeah. But all those covers, to me, those covers aren't good enough. The Beatles songs are so much better than the covers, except for maybe Twist and Shout, which is great, obviously. And they didn't. I wish they played more. There's better songs they were doing. They're playing the softer songs, the nicer songs.
But it kind of feeds into the story, doesn't it? If the original written songs are better than the cover songs.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It just sort of feeds into the narrative.
Yeah, they just started writing songs and they were the amazing songs.
Awesome.
Oh my God, the Bill and Ted. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not egging the Beatles. No.
You're not egging the Beatles?
I'm not doing that. Not happening.
No, okay. We're not going to egg the Beatles.
Yeah.
Because everyone will have to be 6. If you don't give it 6, then someone will be upset. What a waste of time. Waste my time listening to this review because you didn't give it 6 eggs. It should be at least 6 eggs.
Yeah. What a waste of time watching this review when you didn't say exactly what I already knew, and then it wouldn't have been a waste of time.
Even though if you actually listened to the review, we probably did.
Yeah.
Those are the killers.
I know. It's also not good enough.
Why'd you rag on this album so much? We said we loved it.
Yeah. Not enough. It's the greatest thing in life. Never said no. Don't even look at it. Don't even touch it. So yeah, next is So what we're doing? This is for Patreon. So this video is to the world, and the idea is our Patreon www.patreon.com/WentonKing is where the rest of the albums are going to go. That's the idea, which we will do maybe once a week or something like that, I think, or maybe once every 2 weeks. I think it's more realistic because we're still doing the other things as well. It depends.
We've got those more Pink Floyd to upload, haven't we?
So again,
We got loads more Pink Floyd to put on there, yeah, haven't we?
Yeah, we need to stick because we've got to Dark Side now, which is a very long review, longer than the album. I can't remember how long it was, but it's very long.
Yeah.
I don't think these Beatles reviews are going to be like the Pink Floyd ones, where certainly the Wall and the Dark Side we did in about 3 sittings.
Yeah.
To do one album. So they're not going to be like that. The Beatles ones, lots of facts. But I tried to do that. But the great thing with the Beatles is obviously that it's such a short period of time. The next 6 albums is actually a really short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it all goes in 63 to 69, isn't it? And that's
70. Yeah, but
so that's like the Beatles.
Rubber Soul is 65.
That's
This
mad.
is 63.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's complete mad. Yeah. So the next one of these will be on Patreon later on. And that will be with the Beatles. Next week we're going to do Mr. Lord, John Lord.
Looking forward to that.